Jenna, the ENFP sister that I've been
said
talking
my name
about.
this time.
Thank you for your submissions for your questions, guys. We got over 100, so we're not going to be able to answer them all, but we have narrowed them down to a few that we think you're going to enjoy. As usual, please feel free to leave any of your thoughts and comments and further questions in the comment section of this video. We would love to hear your thoughts on what we're going to talk about today. Who knows what we're going to talk about today?
It's a mystery to us all.
Yeah. Just a quick disclaimer, Jenna is the first guest on my channel, so I'd really appreciate if you could be kind in your comments, because I care about her a lot and she's doing me a solid by coming on this channel.
Also, just be kind. It's nice to be kind.
It is nice to be kind. We love kindness on this channel. Great. One more thing, this is actually a reshoot. We shot 2 hours worth of footage of us answering your questions last night.
At like 10 p.m.
And then only afterwards did we realise that there was a focus issue. I hadn't locked the focus, so the focus kept pulling in and out. And we were like...
It was not pleasant viewing. We're refilming it for you.
We're refilming it, which...
So just appreciate Kristen's effort that she's putting in for you people.
But also, I don't hate it, because I'm hoping I'm not gonna have 2 hours of footage to edit after this, because Jenna has notes this time.
I've taken notes and written down actually like a pre-planned what I'm gonna say.
We did, however, play the paddle game yesterday. Who would be the most likely to trip over?
Like 100,000%.
Who could talk their way out of a speeding ticket? So I will still release that footage at some point, probably next week. All right, so before we jump into the video, Jenna's also got a couple of disclaimers she'd like to say. Jenna, if you could, say them succinctly, that'd be great.
Yeah, okay, so I'm obviously going to talk about dominant NE, and I'm going to talk about what it's like to be an ENFP, but I mean, this should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, which is that I only speak from my own subjective experience. So I'm actually super curious if you're another ENFP, if you resonate with a lot of the things I say, or if you don't. And also, if you're watching this video to try and understand an ENFP in your life, maybe you might pick up a few things, but maybe like actually talk to them and like ask them questions about themselves, because
we're all unique individuals.
Exactly.
As I've said in this video, that I will put either up here or up here. I should know what side it comes on by now. So for those who don't know, Jenna is an ENFP and I am an ESFP. That means of our main 4 functions, we share 2 of them, the second and the third, which are FI, Introverted Feeling, and TE, Extroverted Thinking. But our first function and our 8th function are swapped. So my first function is Extroverted Sensing. Jenna's last function, 8th function, is Extroverted Sensing.
It's a good life.
Jenna's first function is Extroverted Intuition, or NE, and my last function is Extroverted Intuition. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like for Jenna and the difference between SE and NE a little bit. So first question is, what do you have the most in common?
Okay, so the most in common is definitely, as we discussed yesterday when we filmed this, and is now more honed, is definitely the FI.
Social energy.
Social energy. Say it with me.
Social energy. That means our energy when we're around people. We can present...
Fancy that.
We can present very similarly, as I think a lot of ESFPs and ENFPs can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that is because we're both running with these like exploring sort of like spontaneous, adaptable functions who just kind of want to lap up whatever's coming at them.
And we're both, and we're both people. Like we're both, we love people. We get our energy from hanging out with other people. So
Jenna and I do get our energy from people, but that does not mean that SE and NE as functions are limited to getting energy from people. But we'll talk a little bit about that later in the video.
That's right. Oh, and then the FI is the other thing, is that we're both, we're both pretty strong and self-assured and confident in the things that we believe, and also because we're older. We're not old people, but we're older. We've had enough kind of life experience to kind of solidify our beliefs and find that we know what we're passionate about.
We know our convictions.
We know our convictions.
And they're sort of attached to everything inside.
Exactly.
And that's the thing with FI, or Introverted Feeling, is that it's very much like, this is what I believe, these are my convictions, and it would be hard to change those.
And you can also appreciate on the flip side that other people have their own convictions and their own... So it's like, cool, you've said your piece. It's clear that like we might be different and not convince each other, but that's like...
Yeah, because ultimately FI values...
As long as you let my values be my values,
because ultimately FI values, say it with me,
social energy. values autonomy. Yeah, and that's the EP thing as well, hey, being an EP.
Everyone values autonomy, obviously, but like
we're super like,
we'll be like, EFI's the most, EPs are the most like, you do you.
And also, you better not encroach on my freedom. It's like my personal freedom.
No, don't do that. So that's what's the most similar about us. Feel free to jump down in the comments and tell us if you think there are other similarities between us that you're noticing.
Oh, obviously our mannerisms, because we're literally like the same, like we're really close in age, and I was gonna say we're literally the same person. We're not the same person. That's what this is about.
Next question. What is most different about you?
Oh yeah, obviously the SENE, right? Obviously.
Huge.
Like difference. Kristen's like, yeah, let me go and jump off the cliff. Let me go skydiving. She's not, she's never. No, that's true, you are. She's like, let me pack up and move to another country without notice. And I'm like, yeah, in theory, love that idea, but also like, let's.
But the fact that I've just thought about that idea is enough for me. And I'm like, what?
Like, I went there in my brain. And that's enough for me to like.
Whereas I'm like, nah, gotta experience it, brother.
I mean, I know that a lot of ENFPs are into travel and stuff like that. And I, in theory, like I just love reading about, like, I'll read about a place and like the history of the
ENFPs, let us know in the comments, what do you like about traveling? Because I know for SE users like myself, especially ESFPs, it's experiencing, having 101 different experiences with different people who I may never see again, and that's okay, you know.
Can't fathom.
Or anyway, let us know.
Kristen loves like going out and doing stuff. Like when COVID hit, I think it hit you pretty hard. Because Kristen loves to just be out of the house, like
engaging in the world.
And I think one of the biggest differences is like highlighted in like, so we live pretty far apart. We lived pretty far apart from each other, and Kristen drove to my house once and it was quite late at night, and she was like driving on a dark country road, and she like got to my house and she was like buzzing with energy, and I was like, she's like, oh yeah, I'm so energized, like that was the best car trip ever. And I'm like, oh wow, like, you know, what, like, how was it, what did you do? And she's like, yeah, I was like, you know, driving down this road, it was completely dark, no one knew where I was, I had loud music, windows down, like wind through my hair, and I was just like singing at the top of my lungs, and it was like great, and I feel so alive. And I was just like, that sounds like all of my worst nightmares. Like dark road, can't see where you're going, like no one knows where you are. Like, loud music blaring so you can't like hear your own thoughts, or like you can't hear, like I like to hear what's going on with the car while I'm driving, so I know if like something's gonna go wrong or things like that.
I do as well, but sometimes a banger comes on and you gotta
fair enough. Another thing is I tend to, like, I'll have intense, like a week of seeing people, and then I'll just disappear for like a month. And then I'll like go out for another intense period of like hanging out with people, then disappear for like a few weeks or whatever. But Kristen's more like steady. You're more steady in your energy.
I'll disappear for like an hour. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
That must be really hard for you.
Yeah. Sometimes it just gets too much, you know. Yeah. Okay, on to the NE questions. So, extroverted intuition. It is a cognitive function based on the 8 cognitive functions theory of Carl Jung. For those of you who don't know, extroverted intuition, or NE, is the dominant function of the ENTP and the ENFP. It is the second function of the INTP and the INFP. It is the third function of the ESFJ and the ESTJ. And it is the fourth function, or aspirational function, of the ISTJ and the ISFJ. So, with that out of the way, Jenna, what is NE and how does it present in a dominant NE user?
Okay, so NE, for anyone who is wondering, is terrible.
Good one.
Wow, that was so bad.
That's never been done before.
Yeah, never so original. Don't tell an ENFP they're not original. They'll cry inside.
Okay, first bit of advice for those.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You should be
ENFPs.
okay with not being an original, because no one is really. But then we all simultaneously are at the same time.
Don't take the shot.
So NE, the best way that I can describe it from my own experience of being a dominant NE user, is that it is a zoomed out pattern recognizing function. That's the most basic like way to describe it. That basically means that we are big picture people, and we can see how lots of little things are connected, and the implications of a lot of things and what they mean for like the greater picture of the world. There's lots of threads that are like connected, you know, everything's connected, I would say. Another thing with NE is that it is concerned with the meanings behind mere sense data. So it's more kind of metaphysical, like beyond physical in its application. So That's why a lot of any users, and especially any DOMs, will be quite in tune with like implications of things, hidden meanings of things. Like they won't just take something at face value and be like, okay, this is this thing disconnected from everything else, just as at face value. There's always some sort of connection that can be made or drawn to something else beyond what's like visibly evident and like obvious. Another thing with any that's great is that it moves quickly, like it moves freely, and it's limitless in its like movement. So there's no limit to the amount of connections that we can make between things, because everything,
all of this can be said about SE as well, except
in a different way.
Physical experiences in the tangible world.
So we're collecting.
Right,
I'm gonna get to stuff. I'm gonna like talk about. Anyway, it's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah,
TE coming out right there.
Similar to SE, which is about collecting.
I'm gonna get there.
Similar to SE, which is about collecting experiences, would you say? We collecting experiences and then incorporating them into your worldview, and collecting experiences that give you data about decisions and things you want to do.
Experiences give meaning.
It's like collecting ideas, concepts, conversations with people, little tidbits of information, like collecting all of those things, and then, you know, whatever your next functions are, which we'll get to, that is like our filter for that. But any is like just collect. Oh, I'm so sorry.
I knew it was gonna happen. I knew
got
it.
her a good one.
It was good because I was essing out, so it was a good like sensory experience.
Give you a sensory thrill. So it's very adaptive. I find also, for me personally, it's very optimistic because it's about possibilities and what could eventuate. It's very optimistic about, you know, what's possible. So much is possible. There's like so much potential in the world that can be actualized or not, but that's not the point of any. The point of any is to enjoy the possibility, right? Pure any is like, whoa, all the possibilities, all the interconnectedness, like everything, it's amazing. Like, let's just explore endlessly. But we're gonna get talking about how exploring endlessly is not like the healthiest thing to do.
We've got to limit our need to explore. Otherwise, what happens is just toxicity.
You're
Addiction.
so deep. That's so profound.
Addiction to the function.
Right, okay, so another thing is like NE is quite they call it like an open-minded, they call it. Those guys over there call it like it's very open-minded. It's like the open-minded function because it's taking in as many perspectives and ideas as possible and see there's value in all of them, right? Even if you don't believe or subscribe to or like approve of like an idea, right? It's still interesting. It's still endlessly fascinating to explore all those things. I think any as well for ENTPs and even INTPs. I'm married to an INTP, and we can like endlessly talk about human nature. And just it's very humanities, I find, for us. It's like philosophical humanities, like focused. It's not like technical and like sciencey.
I would say that I am able to explore those same concepts. I love talking about human nature as well, but the difference is it's because my FI is invested. Like I value those kind of talks.
Yeah.
And that's why I can talk about them, and they will still give me energy, those topics. For you, would you say that your FI doesn't even have to be invested? It's more just like the fact that you're talking with someone means your FI is invested.
Yeah, absolutely. Dominant NE is literally just, we want to just call it, like there's no limit to how many different perspectives and different ideas I will explore and find interesting. It's like FI is like, what do I then believe and take on board interiorly? But NE is like, everything is interesting to me. Like I'm super, super interested in like everyone that I meet.
I think because SE and NE are perceiving functions, I relate to that in the sense that whenever I meet someone, they're just like a blank canvas to me. It's like a new start. It's like this exciting new start. I'm not bringing any preconceived judgments onto the situation. It's more just like, what new cool experience am I gonna get from this person? Like that's why we enjoy meeting people so much.
The other thing about NE, that probably the last thing I'll say for now, is that it's about like the new and the novel, things that we haven't tested or tried out before. It doesn't mean we're not interested in things we've heard or like explored before or are proficient at. We're still obviously interested in those things, but we are like, you know, if you're like when I was in my early 20s specifically, just like anything that was new, I was like obsessed. And that's why we get the reputation, I think, as ENFPs and ENTPs of like no follow through, because we're always like, that new thing is like the most important. Wow, we have to go and like tease that out as much as we can. And then obviously teasing out this thing is going to spark and trigger like all these other new things that we then have to compulsively have to pursue, because it's just so endlessly fascinating, right?
That's why EPs are very much about the process. The process is just as exciting, if not more exciting, than the outcome.
Yeah, totally. I think that's like spot on. We don't we achieve an outcome and then we're searching for the next process, right? It's like, oh cool, I did that thing, great. What's the next thing? Like, I feel alive when I'm chasing the next thing. Yeah. Which is not to say that that's how you should live, but you should definitely, your dominant function is there for a reason. You just need to make sure that it's integrated healthily into your personality and into your lifestyle, and then it can actually be free to be the best version of itself, be its best self.
Which is a healthy approach, because you don't try and suppress that function because you think it's bad or something. You need to allow time and space for that function, which I said in this video.
Oh my gosh, we both went for it. Another great thing about this NE, right? Life is never boring. We're never bored. What a great life, right? You would feel the same with your SE. Like, as long as you're going out and exploring and experiencing
I'm really
things.
bored.
I'm like never bored. I can sit in my house and just think about stuff. And just like research stuff and go down Wikipedia rabbit holes. Who else? This is not ENFP specific, I'm sure, because our culture is
very
like
NE though.
But like, I'm sure a lot of people have been down those Wikipedia rabbit holes. But maybe the difference between NE is like,
so far.
It's just like complete. Like, you start researching like Stockholm syndrome, for example, and you end up on
the fourth king of
but like you're reading something like,
Mongolia.
oh, this type of bear. Wow, that's so interesting. Like, where does this bear live? What does it eat? And then you're like, ooh, what are elderberries? You click on that, and then you end up on like permaculture. Like,
it's kind of like me. I say I'm just going to the shops, and then I end up, it's 5 a.m.
Like, hey, I'm just
I'm like 7 cupboards
Queensland
down. Yeah. Like in a new country. Okay, next question, Jenna. What is the difference between NE and NI?
Well, as a dominant NI user and as an expert on NI, I can tell you nothing. So I'm going to just take a stab at it. So the difference I perceive is that both types of people are really interested in what I've described before, like possibilities thinking, and we can sit and brainstorm and generate all these possibilities, right? But NI is more interested in taking those possibilities and condensing them. It's like thinking about more possibilities in order to come up with the best one. Does that make sense? So it's like carving. Does that make sense? Like, do you know about NI? Yeah. Kristen knows more than I probably do.
No, I'm enjoying your explanation. That's the thing. Like, everyone who runs the different function explains the functions in different ways. So it's really interesting.
And if you're interested in NI, or you're an NI user, pop your description in the comments about how you think NI is different, because that would be super interesting for me to hear. But from my understanding, what I see that it is in my personal life, NI looks to carve a path out of all these possibilities, right? And to figure out, by process of elimination, I guess, what the best one is.
Yeah.
Like to organize that information, right? Whereas NE, by comparison, when I'm taking in new information, or I'm like thinking of new ideas or connecting the dots, I'm not thinking about like what's the best one. If I'm just in that pure like dominant NE space, I'm literally just having fun, right? I'm just having fun with the possibilities. So it doesn't even matter if there's any outcome to it at all. It's just like, this is a playground, this is fun. Like, I enjoy being in this space. And then it gets filtered through the process of like, okay, it gets filtered through my FI. Is this like something worth pursuing? Is this something I believe in? Like, is this something that I want to explore more or not? But like, but in its pure form, the NE is more just broad. And the NI, I think, is more just like deep. Like, they're just like, okay, wow, this is a cool possibility. I want to narrow it down to this, and I want to like really explore like this niche. And they have a lot more, I think, deep knowledge about things. Whereas NE people, NE has like more broad knowledge of like lots of different random things, but it doesn't go necessarily super deep unless you develop that ability in yourself.
NI is exploring for the sake of refining. NE is exploring for its own sake.
Yeah, love that. Could have just said that in like, Kristen just summed it up. Like, I could have said that really succinctly, but I didn't.
No, I enjoyed that explanation because I find it hard to get in the mind of NEs, so it's good to understand Yeah,
So it's just fun.
That. World is a playground for EPs.
World is a literal playground for SE users. It's like, hey,
Literal
let me go
playground.
jump on that playground slide.
Oh, I can't walk past a playground and not want to go on it.
Yeah, you're like a big kid.
And
I'm
will-
also like a big kid, but in different ways.
Yeah, and I will if the company's right.
Wow, good job. That was pretty short.
That was 4 minutes!
Yeah.
Amazing!
So
Genuinely excited about how she summed that up in 4 minutes. Okay, next question. How do you filter your NE ideas into categories of good/bad or worth/not worth pursuing?
I would say my NE's quite developed because of like a lifetime or like 30 years of using it. You get really good at like, okay, yep, cool, that's something I want to do now, that's something I want to explore now, that's something I can't do right now because of these physical limitations in my world or because of, practical things that might come up in the way, so I'm not going to start it because I know that it's not going to be able to be followed through with, and therefore, like when you follow through with stuff, it's really affirming and you feel like you feel on top of the world.
So when she says she's developed that NE, she's learned how to filter it through those
to
other
integrate
functions
it,
rather than like let it roam free, basically.
Exactly.
Which is
So
what I've done as well with my SE.
Exactly. So you just know, like you just know. You're like, well, if it's, you can think of something and then you're like, well, is this in alignment with my values? Is it something that I can achieve in real time? Is it something that will benefit the people around me? Is it something that will uplift people? Like, that sort of thing. So you develop that, I think, self-awareness and knowledge about how the world works, and it's easy to then decide what's worth attempting and what's worth not.
Yeah, and it's like muscle memory. You don't even have to think about it a lot of the time. You can just know in your gut.
Yeah.
I'd say that's the same with my SE.
Yeah. You're like, I'm not going to jump off a cliff. Would you jump off a cliff? You
would.
would.
If there's water.
You would, yeah.
If there's water. Yeah, 100%. And I have. I did that in
I
Bali.
knew it. I'm like, I bet you have already.
I did it in Bali and it was so much fun.
I was on a roller coaster once and I was like, I hate this. Get me off. I had to close my eyes like,
I love that that's your relation.
I know, because like the adrenaline, I couldn't. That's just me though. It's not an ENFP thing, because some ENFPs would be like, woo, love that, which we love. That's
ENFPs, do you like roller coasters? And if so, what do you like about them? Let us know in the comments. I know for SE, the thrill is in just the thrill in and of itself. Even if we were alone, like the adrenaline, the like ups and downs, the stomach going up and down. Like,
I hate that.
I love it.
Like when you're driving and you drive down.
Oh, I love that.
I'm just like, could you just slow down?
No. And you drive down a hill and then I'm like, I want to go back. And then I go back and do it again. And the final NE question that we've got today is, how do you anchor/ground your NE or bring it into the practical world?
Yes, so that is just through development and integration of the SI. So just to have systems set up around you so that when you are in that NE space, you are not feeling like in the back of your mind, you're not like, oh, I should be like doing my laundry. Oh, I should be like feeding my children. I feed my children. Or like, you're not thinking in the back of your mind of all these things that you should be doing, and therefore like limiting your NE, like you're not fully free to explore that NE. So if you set up like systems around you that feel safe and that are secure, then you can just like map out time for your NE to just go like, woo, or like you get so good at time management and like, okay, now is a period of time where I can just do, like, for me it's projects like building things or like making things or exploring some new creative interest or like painting or writing a song.
ENFP's fourth function is SI, which is introverted sensing. It's about like order in the immediate physical world. For those of you who don't know what the different roles of the different cognitive functions are, your fourth function is what's known as by many as your aspirational function. So it's the one that, like, even though I have SI in my shadow function stack, we don't have to get into that in detail. I'm capable of it, but it's not something that I value or aspire to use. Whereas for Jenna, it would be something that she does aspire to use. And so the theory is that if you work on and develop that fourth function, you will actually just become a more well-rounded, flourishing individual, because you'll be accessing all of those points to which you aspire. It's important to know that it's not just about being in that top function and just staying there and just roaming free in it. I think it's the Objective Personality YouTube page that's referred to it as the addiction function, the one you're addicted to. So you use it, your top function. So you can like use it like, function. Yeah, you can use it like superfluously or unhealthily. Yeah. And so it's good to, again, learn how to filter that through all of the other functions, which are also important to you.
Yeah.
So
whatever your functions are, wait, come close, this is a secret. It's not, it shouldn't be. You are awesome, and whatever your functions are, you have the innate ability to tap into those and be like an amazing force for good and just like awesomeness in the world. Whatever you uniquely have to offer, the world needs. Like, could I be more of an ENFP?
Literally. Okay, so that is all our any questions today. And now we're going to move on to some sister questions that you guys asked about us specifically in our relationship. What does an argument look like in your relationship? And does your SE/NE have something to do with this? I will say that we don't really argue that much these days. In the last few years...
That's not true.
In the last few years, we haven't really had a lot of arguments. But when we do, they're very quick, I must say. And they are very TE. I don't actually recognize what the SE/NE difference is in the arguments because it's not really relevant. Unless it's about, like, the subject matter could be very SE, like, so sometimes Jenna will be like, don't you understand this profound pattern or connection here? And I'm like, no, that has no real world, tangible world relevance to me. So until I've experienced it, I'm not going to believe you there. So the subject can be very SE/NE differences and you'll see that come out. But in terms of the way in which we have arguments, it's very TE. And we use what we like to call, well, what I like to call the TE tone.
I was ready.
The TE tone, which is that very like blunt, straight to the point, matter of fact, don't sugarcoat or like pad this up.
Don't pander to people.
Don't pander to people. Just tell me exactly what you want. Here's how it is.
Like, this is the issue I have.
Yeah, here's the issue I have. Or don't you see how your logic is inconsistent here or how there's a contradiction here? And we will verbalize that because it's extroverted thinking. Whereas any TI user, introverted thinking, would be running with extroverted feeling. So they would be extroverting their feeling, but we are extroverting our thinking. So it can be quite blunt. And if people are witnessing that, they can think it's like more hostile than it actually is. This is why it's good to know MBTI as well, is because being around FE users who I know are FE users or have identified as FE users, or I can identify them as FE users, I will know to sort of soften my approach in the way I say things and tone down that tone, which is really hard sometimes because it's so natural for me to use it. So generally speaking, what an argument these days would look like is we start on that same ground and then one of us who's kind of more fiery in the moment will TE tone it up, and then the other will be like, okay,
like,
and then settle down, and then it'll end. And then this person will come back in like 5 minutes and be like, I'm sorry for being annoyed at you.
Or like we're always apologising for like the TE tone.
Yeah, like,
it's like, okay, sorry, I shouldn't have spoken in that like really like...
Yeah, and then like, and then the other person will be like, it's okay. Like, I understand. Generally no like hard feelings.
No hard feelings, get over things really quickly. Like,
Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. Stay tuned for the bloopers at the end. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my friend Joe, who is an INTJ. He was the first person to interview me back in February, and he did so on his channel. We've been good mates ever since, and he's got an Etsy store on which he has designed MBTI themed posters based on each type. The quotes that he's chosen for the ESFP speak to my soul, especially this one. I've just always been really energetic. I don't have a process, I just react. And you know what? I just shouldn't be allowed to make decisions anymore. He's also got some INTJ and ENTJ shirts in the works, and I mean, he really puts a lot of effort into what he does, so check his store out via the link that I've put in the description of this video. Okay, on to the bloopers. On the 8 cognitive functions, theory of Carl Jung, which was back in the 1940s. I don't know that date, so I'm not gonna leave that in.
Just like harming people. Obviously.
Yeah, no, of course.
Doing something objectively wrong. Yes, people, objective wrong things exist.
Woohoo! Love that.
Hot button topic. Let's discuss. No, let's not discuss. Discuss in the comments if you think objective.
Okay, you can't just open up a forum for like philosophical debate on my channel.
I would love that. Let's talk. Because our thoughts can be all over the place. Often. Break it down, chimes.
Do not put that in. I will 100% put that in.
Great. Let's model an argument. I think this thing.
I think this thing.
No, this thing because these reasons.
Okay, I see what you're trying to say. but that's stupid because this thing.
No. That's stupid because this other thing.
But if you're basing life on this thing, then this thing is gonna happen. This is way too vague.
Just kidding, I haven't written a song since I was like 15.
The,
Do you remember that song? Let's not go there.
No, I don't remember that song.
What? Reach out your hands.
Oh my gosh, yes! Yes. Wow.
We're not going to sing
We
that
used to
song.
write songs.
Comment down below if you want to hear the song that we wrote when we
Stop,
were 15.
no, they will.
Hi, just a message for my grown-up children in the future. If you're watching this, I'm sorry to be embarrassing. I'm not. This is going to be your life forever, I'm sorry.